I'd like to welcome you all to the 10th edition of the Dharamsala International Film Festival. We have a panel here that is so important to all us filmmakers. It speaks about finance. And as a filmmaker, I know whenever I go to a film festival, the subject we tend to talk about most amongst each other is finance, because that's the kind of journey we need to share. We learn from each other. And sadly, at this time when we are online, I think this is a topic that we all need to discuss. The other thing that's happened in this period is so much has changed over these last 1.5 years. So the landscape is changing, and we really need to find out what's going on, what the possibilities are for filmmakers. And so I welcome you on all, and I'm going to hand over now to Anupama, and I hope we're going to learn all the things we need to learn. You know, even some of them may be hard realities that we need to know about. So please bring it on.
Thank you, Ritu. And first of all, congratulations on such an amazing festival that you've run, and now it's on an extension mode. So that's great for all those of you who are listening in right now. DIF has extended its tenure to 14th of this month. So you have those many extra days. And now I would like to welcome my lovely panelists. Thank you so much, guys, for being here. They don't really need an introduction, but I'll still do a quick run. So we have with us Isabelle Glachant. I hope I got the name right. She's a producer and she's founder of Chinese Shadows, which is Hong Kong-based, and the France-based Sacha Coquelin. And she's been a journalist. She started as a journalist with Canal Plus, debuted with Shanghai Dreams, which won the Best Jury Award at Cannes. Has an incredible filmography, nominations and awards ranging all the way from Venice to Cannes and the works. She's also she's also the producer of one of my favorite films, Marlena the Murderer, in 4 acts. I think it was delightful. Again, a Cannes nominee. She was made Knight of the Order of the Arts and Letters by the French Ministry of Culture, and she represents Greater China at Uniforms. Is right now doing co-productions with Dutch, Americans, French, and Chinese. So I guess that's a lot of things to discuss. Thank you, Isabelle, and welcome. Srishti Behl, producer and former head original film at Netflix India, began her career with advertising, went on to set up Rose Movies, which is a producer for film and filmed content in India. As Netflix head, I think she brought in some really remarkable associations and 25 original features with some very fresh voices, I think, and a whole range of them, from a Bulbul to Ye Ballet to Raat Akeli Hai, not all of them mainstream Bollywood, a great mix. There's a lot of questions to be asked there, and double-edged sword, because been with the most prized OTT in this country and a producer of consequence, back to producing now. So yes, Rishi, lots of questions for you and lots of hope out there, guys. Thank you for joining us, Rishi. Samir Sarkar, the indie producer on the panel today, representative, and how life is really tough for him. He's the, excuse me, he's the founder, producer of Magic Hour Films. Excuse me. And he's the one, his film Nasir has been very celebrated in the indie circuit over the last few years, 2 years, in fact, completely in conversation, has done all the labs down the assembly line, from screenwriter to production to post and the works, had a Dutch release. So we must talk about that as well. Also awarded at Rotterdam, does some really experimental films, produced Jonaki, again, a very independent, very experimental. And then, of course, congratulations on your national award this year with Reggie's False Eye, Kallanotam, the Malayalam film, right? Yeah, congratulations. So welcome and thank you for being here, everybody. I'll get straight to the kill, and the first one's to you, Samir. How difficult is it, and how difficult has it been these last 2 years? And now that the market is back, what is it like?
Difficult, well, difficult how is the first question. Is it difficult in recovering the money from a project, or enjoying the fruits of a project? So enjoying the fruits of a project, I definitely have. There's no doubt. I mean, films have done well in terms of critically very well. But when it comes to recoveries of monies, I have learned a lot in the last, across the films that I have produced. And I think that is where one has to be very prudent. That is where one has to really go through a certain process, be very conscious at what budget you're making the film, and only then can you think of recovering from an independent project. Unless, of course, an OTT platform, you win a big award, a big prize, and an OTT platform kind of picks up your film. Um, but that's also not really the flavor of the day. I mean, OTT platforms don't pick up your films because they don't find enough commercial value in it. So it's been both. It's been a tough journey, yet it's been a satisfying journey in many ways.
Um, he just brought in a lot of hope, and he mentioned the OTO word here. So Srishti, my question is to you. When someone who makes a Nasir or a Jonaki or films like this, when they come to an OTT, what is it that, A, how do they reach you? B, what is it that an OTT really looks at?
Anupama, I'll say one thing is that we are at the moment in a fairly, like, I would say, a golden age of entertainment. We have people like Samir on the panel, like Isabella, who are empowering people to do really great work, and a lot of talent getting voices because of all the opportunity of where they can be presented now. So you're no longer restricted to having a screening, that has to be in the theaters and therefore has to have that X marketing and stuff like that. Today, sitting at home, thanks to the streaming services, you're able to access all this content. However, having said that, every service seems to have their own mandate about what it is that they expect from their content and at what price, right? So you do, a few years ago, having when Mubi was starting, you wouldn't see that you would get those kind of films available to you so simply. Things that if you didn't make it to the festival got lost in some other world. Today is something that's being discussed broadly, and not just little hidden gems, but even the bigger festival hits are coming onto that. But essentially, this is a commercial business for all streaming services. So India provides a lot of volume as the opportunity that people look at us for in terms of commercials, right? So it is a bit of a broader play generally with most of the services that are there in the country, like they would be in theaters. So yes, the opportunity is there for you to put it up on the service. What have you spent on the film has generally got a little less to do with what you might get paid for it. And what is the purpose that the streaming service would like to achieve from it? Like a major award would be a very meaningful on a service that says that they are about getting exclusive cinema, getting acclaimed cinema, versus another service which could be, packaging some content alongside with e-commerce. So, there are various approaches that people have and who it is that they're speaking to, which largely run these. And I'm sorry, I think you also asked me, how did it get to me, the material? That's very individual in terms of how accessible executives would like to be. But broadly, I was very accessible. I think you can walk onto the street and ask for my email and somebody would give it to me, answering a lot of the, making sure there was a response, even if it wasn't a happy response, was a major priority. And some people look at it, but you must understand that the volumes are so large in terms of the submissions and people reaching out that it's next to impossible to be able to be on time and accurate to come back to everyone else, within their time limit, because you send in one script and then you wait, which is very, very frustrating. But the executive on the other side has received likely anything upward of 10 in that day, aside from everything else that they're doing. And, India is a land of storytellers. So that means there are a lot of people who are always open to saying things. And OTT also brought on this thing where everybody and their uncle opened their closets and took out all the scripts that they had written over the last 15 years and sent them all together. So it's been fun, but you know, there's hope, right? They're all artists out here, and aspiring or otherwise. So you know, eventually it is going to speak to people in a larger way, and that's what everyone's looking for.
Isabelle, I wanted to ask you. Um, Both Samir and Srishti have largely spoken about what eventually happens to the indie. Does it really see the light of the day? And really, it came from a producer's perspective that uh, does it really make money, and is it sustainable to make the next one and thereafter? So to you, someone who founded Chinese Shadows, and then when I see it, it's also a production arm and a sales arm. And then you have a foot in Hong Kong and you have a foot in France. So with this kind of an operational umbrella, how do you really perceive Indian, Asian independent content across the world? Is it really driven by OTT sales, or is there more to it? How does it become sustainable?
First, I would like to talk about the experience of watching an OTT platform in France looking for an Indian film. The film doesn't reach you. You find it because you know it's there. You find it because you're looking for it. But you can't really say when you're a French audience in France that actually Indian content arrives to you. So that's the first thing, because probably for the people listening to us, if they are in India, they do have their Indian films and content being proposed to them. But here in France, it's French content that is proposed to us, so not the Indian ones. So you have to understand already that an Indian film or an Asian film, when you see it from Europe, it's further away. It would have subtitles. It talks in language you don't know. It is with actors you've never seen before. You don't know the name of those actors. You don't have so many Indian films in the cinemas here. And so for a film to be able to reach out a European audience, it means somehow that he went through usually a film festivals. Then there was some reviews, and then someone somehow attracted a distributor to watch the film. And then the distributor thought, well, maybe it's worth trying that film and propose it to my audience, because there's a topic, there's a voice, there's a name, there was a words that actually wouldn't make my audience buy a ticket and try out that Indian film, when in the cinema next to it, there's local films and Hollywood films. So it takes a lot for an audience to go and see that Indian film. It's not that easy to convince a distributor and to convince an audience to reach out to that film. That means that the film that they will try out will somehow have specificity, which I would say usually they have a strong artistic value. There's a very personal film with a strong style. And that's what people will go for, which means that the director somehow, even if the audience will not know probably the name of the Indian director, I think you could try in Europe, and I'm not sure any people going to the movies might be able to name an Indian director, except maybe for older people with Satyajit Ray, which shows how far we go back in time. But they know titles. They've heard about Nasser for sure. They've heard about the film because there was reviews. People say, oh, that film is good. So the title is because people would say, there's a story and there's a point of view, which means that even though that name is not the strongest, that director is very key in having the film being able to travel and finding a market, whatever the market is. And the market sometimes for young talents, for a younger filmmaker, might actually be only film festivals. It might not be distribution. It might not be in the cinemas. It might not be on the OTT. But the fact that he travels, and financially, that's a challenge. And for sure, when you've put your own money, which is not the case in Europe, European producers very often do not put their own money. They go and search for the money with public funding. It is a challenge to finance a film in India and have your film travel in the festivals. And these being the only market. I'm not saying it's the case for all films, but I'm saying there's different levels of possibilities. And the international market sometimes goes there, about having a film that travels, that goes to festival, win awards, which might mean for the producer, for the next film of this director, it might be easier to find money, public fund money in Europe, and my means for that director that he might manage to have a distribution for the next film. Maybe not this one, but maybe the next one.
So if I hear you right, what you're actually saying is that the first film is really more about visibility, conversation, and imaging, and positioning, and making the subsequent films easier. Okay. You also mentioned the fact that there is public funding, which is very specific to Europe, really. And so I would quickly like to all of us to kind of touch upon that. 2-3 notions. And this also comes from a question that was asked by one of the filmmakers in my, I requested questions today on the social media. So I have a number of filmmakers, and they've been either direction program students. One of them is pretty senior, 10 years into the business, asking me the same question, that accessing these public funds, India, I don't think has them, does it? Samir?
No.
Right.
India does not have a public fund.
So probably that's why you're doing, and you specifically have had all these partnerships. I mean, all your films have either gone to you've tried Hubert Balls and then the Dutch funds and all of that, right? So that's the kind of journeys you've made. So given a situation like this, and all of them are asking, how do we do this paperwork? How does an artist do all this paperwork, and how does a director manage it? So maybe should an independent filmmaker then become an entrepreneur? Or are we talking about something as specific as you are, Samir? And the kinds that you also have on Chinese Shadows, I mean, and with you, Srishti, the independent producers who understand how to balance these voices and figure out a way of getting them heard, getting that money. And how does this money come into an Asian film, this European money? I mean, we can't just go up and ask the French government for money.
So I think, like I said, for independent films, you need to take it through a journey. It's also, when you take it through a journey, it's also reality checks as you go through that journey. A first-time director, a second-time director should definitely attach a producer that has some experience with this world. Now, I did Junaki, which I funded on my own, though Katrin Dusar came on board to help me promote the film because she had a certain weight, and that helped me kind of in the journey, festival journey of the film. On the other hand, Nasir was funded, almost 50% funding came from the Dutch. What happens is when you fund your entire film, you put your entire money at stake. When there is public funding, and it is, for example, if it is 50% funding that you raise from public funds in Europe, and 50% you raise from equity in India, and get in partners. And I think with independent films, the more partners you have, the better it is in many ways. Your risk kind of comes down. We at the beginning have to just recover those 50%. So if it is a 1 crore film, I'm talking in crores, 50 lakhs is coming from the Dutch, and you don't have to, they don't ask you to recover that money at first. The equity investors recover their money first. So your risk is down to 50%. Then in that 50 lakhs, if you get other partners that put in, small amounts of money. So it depends on how the producers see the journey. Sometimes, you just want to do just want to kind of be on a beautiful film, not thinking about recovery in the beginning, but then I think producers should always think about recovery. So when you want to take a film through a journey, I think you should start with applying for script and development funds. That's the first step. Then you meet co-producers. Like I said, more partners you have, the better it is. And a lot of this journey, when you go through a script and development fund, you go through co-production markets, even an NFDC co-production market. You know, your entire vision broadens, and you have these reality checks where you know that this might be wrong. This is what I'm doing right. Do I want to attach an actor that is of a certain repute, etc., etc.
So again, it brings me back to the original question that when you say that a Dutch partner gave you 50 lakhs to make a crore film and without any expectation for returns, you mean it's a grant that a country is giving you, right?
They do recover, but after you make after you have all your money.
So my question is, how does that happen? Why would a Dutch partner, and this is really at a very basic level, I'm asking on behalf of all the filmmakers here, how is it and why is it that a Dutch partner is giving you money to make an Indian film? What are they really looking at? And this question is for you, Samir, and you, Isabelle. Eventually, I'm going to come to you. And then finally to you, Srishti, from this side of the universe, that when all these partnership-driven films come to your table, does it really mean much to an OTT based in India? Because is it coming with a different perspective? I don't know. So that's the question that I'm just leaving here, and I'll go one by one. So Samir, if you can just break that down.
Yeah, so let me take one example. Let me take Nasir's example, for example. So we applied for the script and development fund, and the story was powerful. It was the director's second film. His first film was nothing like a Nasir. But I think it's also, I won't say it's luck, but I would say not only luck, but it is also how strong your project is. So once we got the script and development fund, so that's Rotterdam. It could happen in Busan, it could happen anywhere else. They want to handhold you until the point that they release your film at their festival. So that is what happened with Nasir. We first got the script and development fund. Then we applied for the production fund, which we got. Then we applied for the post-production fund, which we didn't get. But so you go through, and finally we were chosen at several festivals. But Rotterdam said, we have supported this film. We love this film, the way it has come out. We are offering you Tiger competition. And that's how it was Tiger competition, and it won the NetPack award. And then once that happens, reviews happen, because the moment you get into a great festival, in the competition section, reviewers are there, and then you don't have to kind of follow them. They are following the film. And that's where the journey began, and then it had a fantastic festival journey. And then sale, of course, Srishti is going to kind of talk about that.
So yeah, Srishti, you want to take that on?
On a slightly separate note, I'm going to go back a little bit to what you started with, Anupama, which was, should a filmmaker become an entrepreneur? I think every filmmaker is an entrepreneur. And I think that filmmakers need to stop thinking of money as a dirty word. It's a means to an end. There is no cinema without an audience, and you want to put stuff out. Now, how practically we can put it together is what is important. I find very often that younger, idealistic first-timer filmmakers tend to look at money as being a dirty word. This is a business that people are running, and we hope that every film that you make will end-to-end make it convenient, sustainable for everybody involved in that project to make a livelihood out of it, and therefore build their art and craft, right? So it's very important to become aware of that, and then get in the producers. As far as any form of distribution, see, I find it interesting that everybody thinks of OTT as some great savior on a white horse. honestly, it's yet another form of distribution, right? If you're speaking, like if I put on my producerial hat, at the end of the day, there are some films that I would like to have out in the cinemas, for a theatrical experience, because that's what that film needs. It needs to be more collective. It's probably a little bit more of a spectacle. Then there's stuff that you want to watch on linear television. And then there's stuff that comes out on OTT. Even in the OTT space, there's stuff that people are going to watch on their mobile phones, and the ones that are going to be watched on their 52-inch screens at home, right? So there are, a lot of different ways for these to come, and the commercial element of the film therefore becomes in its recoverability and the clarity about who the audience is. And that's the only lens that any distributor, like I think Isabella said very rightly, that when you have local films available, which are more comfortable, which will still be beautiful and are still somebody else's passion, for somebody to experiment, challenge themselves to go into a world that they have little knowledge about, unless it's a spectacle that you're going to see and you can suspend yourself to understand nuances of the culture. That's a tall ask. So if the distributor doesn't feel that enough of people are going to engage with the material, they're not going to pick it up on a theatrical release. That is exactly what will happen in any form of distribution. Does that answer your question?
Yes,
I went about a
partly.
wrong.
No, it answers partly, which actually makes me rephrase what I'm going to ask Isabelle. So I was just looking at the Indian films on Chinese shadows, and you've got Ashwathama, Shankar's Fairies, Village Rock Stars, and I think this is a pre-sale one, If Only Trees Could Talk.
Yeah.
So
in post-production. Yeah.
So my question is, it's very diverse. So as you were the sales agent on it, why would you pick these up? And what is the kind of future you see in them? Clearly, we're not talking OTT here. We're talking about a larger recovery model, and we're talking lots more. Like, it is not just like Srishti rightly said, like OTT is not the be all end all. There's so much more to it. So how will these find sales, and what is it that as Chinese shadows you have felt over the years that you had these films? Did they recover money?
I'm not a producer of those films, so I'm not sure about the recovering of the money. But it's funny, for me, they are similar in the sense that you have a strong director. They are indie production. They are artistic films. They talk about characters. They are character driven. It's not about the big effects behind the character. It's all about that little journey of the main character. I could add Red Phallus to that one, a Nepalese film, which is also South Asian. The reason why we picked those films and we decided to work on those films, it's as simply as those, is we loved the film. We fell in love with the films. It was not because they were commercial or we felt we were going to make a lot of money or they were going to be huge distribution. It's just we felt they were great filmmakers behind those films, and we felt those films could travel, which was really the case for Village Rockstars. We travel really a lot and actually ended up even having an incredible Indian journey within India, which wasn't the case for Ashwathama. So it depends. But those films, I would say, maybe the first starting point, they are festival films. They can travel in festivals, I would say. But probably they travel also, maybe I like those films or the Europeans like those films. So that's why it's a mix of those. But we're talking about the funds, so I don't know if you want to discuss also that part about the funds. I do think that was not the case. Those are no co-production. That might be also another common point between those films. But I do think to have those public funding in Europe and for a film to travel, it's either to have creative producers, meaning producers are not bankers. They are not people that have the money and put the money on the films. I mean, there is some of those, and there's a lot in Asia. We don't have so many of those producers, financiers in Europe. So I would say a film would need to have a creative producer, someone who understands the scripts, can work with the director, on the script and the development for the film to have a chance to actually access those funds. And if you don't have one of those creative producers, I do think that those filmmakers, they need to go to script labs. They need to nurture their projects. It's not so much about, is my project good or bad? Because I think no one can be objective, and all filmmakers always think that their film is beautiful, should be financed, and actually should be on Netflix and go to Cannes in competition and be in the cinemas at the same time. So it's impossible to believe in your project and see all the mistakes or weakness of your project. And that's why you need to have either by your side strong artistic producers that can help you grow, or you need to go to places where people help you to grow, help you to see that you can do better, that you can have a film that is stronger. Because those European funds, they are script-based. It is because of the way you develop your character and the journey that you would have the production fund. So you need a Samir, you need a Srishti, you need an Isabelle by your side to be able to actually access those funds, or you need to go to school in a way, but those schools are industry schools where it helps you individually work on it. And those labs are very often for young filmmakers, first and second time directors. So do not assume that is use your first and second feature chance to actually learn more, learn tools, including tools that you don't want to use, but that actually later on will help you build up your project stronger. No matter if you want the OTT to be financing it or you want to go very artistic with the European fund.
So if I really hear you right, and correct me if I'm wrong, what you're really saying is for first and second time filmmakers, or even otherwise, when you apply to a screenwriter's lab or a co-production lab or whatever, what you're really doing is you are enhancing your project building skills and also learning somewhere to communicate to a different culture about your film and what it...
You learn how to talk with your audience before you've made your film. You learn to introduce your film to someone who doesn't know your country, who doesn't know the background of what you're, and trying to understand how to make that story move someone. And you haven't filmed it yet, but you're in it. So you're searching for your audience, you're searching for your voice from who you are as a filmmaker, for what is the best way for you to have your voice heard. And that's what will help the film be stronger, because more audience will be able to understand the film. So it's cheaper to reach out to an audience which are experts. I mean, it takes a lot of time. You still have to apply and you wait, and it's not an easy road. It's a long road, but it costs less money than to make a first feature and have a film that no one understands and actually that goes nowhere. So it's not because you have an idea that it is a film. You still have to work, because there's a lot of money and a lot of people that needs to be involved in it for an audience to see it and understand it.
So I have a film student who's texted me this question, and I think it's the right time to bring it in. He says that I tried to apply with my feature project to a co-production to the Hubert Bals and to Torino, and yet they asked for an international partner. How do I find a European partner?
That's not right. Script development, Hubert Bals, you don't need a co-producer, but you need a producer. It's not for a director to submit, because very often a director by himself doesn't know how to apply. And Torino is the same. You don't need to have a foreign producer. You need to have a local producer. If you don't have a producer, then actually it doesn't show the funds that the film will be made. They need a producer to trust the project to be made. They don't want to give money just to a director. So they want to be sure there's someone that will handle the legal part, the contracts, the money, but also that will be by the side of the director. So finding a local producer is the first step to be able to go and search for money outside.
So local as in local Indian or local French and local European?
Local in the country of the director. So if the director is Indian, the producer, he should have an Indian producer. And if you can't find an Indian producer, then there's a problem for the international and the European, because if you can't find one in your own country, how are you going to find one in France?
And that's uniform across screenwriting, co-production labs and everything.
For the labs is different. It's not fund, and sometimes you have to pay.
For co-production markets, like you need to have a local partner. No,
maybe I don't know. I don't want to take too much time, but the labs is really it's a workshop. It's going back to school. So it's a script writer, it's a director. It's always better if you have a producer attached because it looks more serious. But sometimes I do believe they take some project without it. This is the lab. The fun is you're looking already for money. And really you need to have a production company with you. And then the project market, which is where you go with your project, go with a producer. Because if you find someone and you need to sign a co-production contract, I don't think a director can do that by himself.
Samir, you want to add to that?
Yes, so definitely I mean, when do you need a co-producer from another country? That's when you receive a production fund. So you cannot apply for a production fund without having a co-producer from that country. So if you're applying for the CNC fund, you need a French co-producer. If you're applying for the SAW fund in Norway, you need a Norwegian producer. And it goes with every country. I mean, we are applying for funds from Wales, so we need a Welsh co-producer. So basically, when the fund is given, I think that country needs someone from. So there also we get into the point system. Every country, when they give money, want something out of that money that pays their own people. So when you get a French producer on board, you have to have some technicians from France. So this is how it goes with the funds. But like Isabelle said, to apply for script and development funds and to apply for workshops, I think you just need an Indian producer.
So I think what this student really meant is co-production markets and looking at a SOR fund or a CNC or something. How is it that you find these Norwegian producers and all? I guess that's what the student is asking.
Well, I think you should have an Indian producer that knows.
And then,
that knows. It's difficult to have a first-time filmmaker and a first-time producer. It's not easy. I mean, I think it's a complex market. It's not that just people come and give you the money. You see, you need a certain kind of experience in the producer. Of course, if the director is a third time, fourth time, fifth time filmmaker and has done really well in the festival circuit and in the international market, then yes, you could have a first time producer. But normally for first time directors, I think it's good to have an experienced producer that has seen the festival independent world a little bit.
So Srishti, the question is to you. So you've seen both worlds, actually, the big mainstream world, the independent world, and the corporate world. And the corporate, of course, is a different world. But how do these partnerships work? Is it about money always, or is it about resource? Can it be back-end distribution deals? How does it work? I mean, and is it the same for, I'm sure the ask and the give and take must be different for mainstream versus an independent, starless, fresh director, upstartish idea kind of a film.
Very strangely, it's not. We are also a country where studios, so to speak, is a new phenomenon relatively for a country that's had cinema for the last 100 years, right? So when you speak of an indie film, it's generally a film that's not backed by any studio or has any big time funding and distribution in place, if I'm understanding this correctly. which is largely, we think of Dharma Productions or Yashraj Films as a studio today, but they are actually indie producers if you take it in the literal form, because they did not have those things in place to begin with, right? So when you're talking about a Sajid Nagarwala, he's a producer. He's just a very successful producer with a lot of money, but there's not a whole attachment to it. Having said that, of course, your success makes it simpler to make your next project, and that's the part of our business that I think we all look forward to, because there's enough of challenge and stress in making any film. There are new challenges every time. Only the previous film only helps you in terms of it makes it a little easier to start. I mean, in my experience. So, it's never going to be a stress-free film that you're going to make, no matter what scale, budget, who the actor is, and where it is for, essentially. So having said that, the challenges are pretty much the same. The scale is what differs. So there's always somebody who's bigger than you. There's always somebody who wants the same money, and you're essentially fighting for the attention. Obviously, the person at the foot of the ladder, the one who's putting their first steps up, are the ones who feel the journey is so incredibly hard to do, and it is. Look, it's not easy, and I wouldn't say it's easy. I have been working for the last 2 years to not reveal my age, but the truth is that I have had moments of actually running behind distributors for a mainstream film, holding cans of film and saying, no, come back, we'll renegotiate. So we are that unstructured as a business to begin with in the first place. And the concept of having somebody putting 50% of the funds because they want to help the culture of cinema to grow in itself is such a fantastic opportunity that people have access to today. So, but to cut a very long story short, it's pretty much the same across, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing. It's just the belief and the fact that you have something really special to say and you know who you're going to say it to, which is going to make the difference between your project getting made or not, no matter who you are.
So I'm going to I see a recurrent motif in all the questions that are there in my Q&A box. And I think all of them are asking this in two parts. One, what is the kind of content that is really, it's one thing to say, I like an interesting voice, but that's very subjective. So what is it that maybe is the new trend? Is it like for the longest time when Lunchbox had those amazing collaborations and multiple country producers and etc. It was this human story and whatever. So now what is the toast of the season? And this is the quick one. So we start with you, Isabelle. What is the flavor of the season? What are they looking at?
Unfortunately, when I say a voice, it's not subjective. And I say it's not subjective because those films travel to many festivals and they are awarded. So it's not one person choice. It means that there is a cinema language questioning, that the director point of view on society is different from the other, is unique. Only that director could have done that film. There is a saying, or which I truly believe, we have filmed old stories. Between the plays that happens for centuries in all our countries, between cinema that is 100 years old, all the stories have been filmed, but it has never been filmed by that director. So it's his point of view that is important. That's why it's a specific voice. And the fact that he uses cinema in a very challenging way, new way, that's what will make the Europeans interested. They also, of course, an art house film, the film that travel, the film that get them interested. They don't know Indian society. They don't know Asian society. So films that questions, that challenges society, it's something that they're interested in. You can say it's political, it's social, but this what interests them. If your film is about saying, oh, it's all beautiful and it's a story of a little girl who go to the school and mom is not happy and at the end she makes a cake, they are not interested. They want something that shows the reality. It has something like that. So maybe you might say it's their vision of reality, and an Indian audience or local audience might not be that interested by those films. So sometimes there's actually a gap between what the films that traveled and that Europeans like to see and what the local audience like to see. And there I would say it's very important to have strong local directors. Not all films, not all directors should travel. Not all films can be co-production. It's not because you want that you could be a co-production, because European, North American audience, international audience are not interested by all the stories. So it is important that you know who you are and what are the films that you make. You can ask a producer if you're not sure yourself, but do not see international festival and awards as being also a label as this is a good film. And bad films are the one that stayed for the local market. No, no, no. Local films for the local markets are also good films, where they are another type of films. So not everybody can travel. So that's why I say about a new voice, because it's cinema. We're talking about cinema, so cinema language, a script, character driven, where the characters create the journey, not a script writer imposing a journey on the characters, which is something more of a commercial film. This is what will make the film travel. And the latest success, strangely maybe enough, it's a very experimental documentary, first time female director from India. She was in Director's Fortnight. She won the best documentary at the Cannes Film Festival from all the section of Cannes. She went to Toronto Film Festival. She won an award again. And I keep on seeing her. She's in APSA competition. She's selected, she's nominated for Best Film. A documentary is nominated for Best Film among other established directors. So everything is possible, but there's a new style. She's strong images. It's a uniqueness. Only that director could have done that documentary. So that's the latest taste or things happening for this year. It's
a
documentary, first time director.
You're talking about Payal Kapadia's film.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Samir, you've kind of had, I'm rephrasing this question for you because you have a whole variety of very new, very fresh voices that you've looked at. How do you identify, and there are a lot of people over here who are asking this, that how does an independent producer like you, who works out of India, chooses projects? Because there's Bangla, there is Tamil, and there is Malayalam in your filmography.
I think for me, it's very story and idea based. I mean, I pick up a film because when I read the story, I kind of relate to it completely, and I'm touched by it, and that's when I want to board the project. And it could be very diverse. So I'm not saying that I would just like to do a film like Junaki the next time, or I would just like to do a film like Paka or Kalanotam or Nasid. It could be very diverse, I think, and I feel that because in India there's a huge divide between the commercial cinema and the independent cinema. I think it's bigger than most other countries. I don't know. In Korea, would a Parasite be called an independent film, or was it a commercial film? But it worked for the audience. But in India, it's very different. I mean, Bollywood films sell, yes, to the Indian diaspora, but it also sells to an Egypt or a Saudi Arabia or a Burkina Faso. But then when we say global, what do we mean by global? Independent films, yes, they kind of are accepted more in places like Europe or North America. So I think.
So are you saying that the budget, I'm sorry, are you saying the price and the budget of the film is not a concern for you? Like suppose it were $1 million, €1 million, then would it be an okay thing? I mean, isn't there a limit to how much you can raise?
So you need to know how to package a film. If you don't know how to package a film.
So I think that's the question here.
Yes.
How we may budget the entire life cycle of a film so that one may deploy a better financing strategy. I guess that's what they're asking, right. That how do I package my film financially? How do I break it up into which fund and how?
Right. Okay. So which fund and how? So let me talk a little bit about this new project that we are on. It's an independent film. It's an independent film because it's not a Bollywood film, but we have attached a star on the film. And the moment you attach a star on the film, you get a certain amount of pre-sale, or there is money interest. So now say a Nasir, what if a Vijaypati, Sedupati was Nasir? You know, how would it have changed its journey? Would it still be the same film, or would it have had a theatrical release in India? Or if a Shahrukh played, I don't know, something on an independent film. But of course, Indian actors are not so experimental, so they don't kind of venture into the indie space, even though there are fantastic independent films. And that I would urge actors, well-known actors, to sometimes, try their hand at doing an independent film, like someone we've recently signed, and she's a big star in the South, and now she's going to be playing a role in an independent film. So I think, see, look at Pebbles, for example. The journey of Pebbles was, the film was already made, but then getting a well-known producer like Vignesh Sivan and Nayantara, big names in the South, kind of packaged the film in a certain way, and its journey and its visibility changed completely. A
So
good,
you're saying that even after a small film has been made in a very, very small way,
yeah.
the packaging that you're talking about in this case for Pebbles is the post, like after it comes back and somebody picks it up to present and
Yes, see, a good film
release
is a
it.
good film at the end of it. I mean, if a festival chooses a good film, it was in Tiger competition, it won the Tiger Award, and it was a brilliant film. But when you package it well later, it gets the visibility, you see, and then once it gets the visibility, you have the money to promote the film, you have the money to get people to write about the film in your own country. Otherwise, sometimes there are great films that travel abroad, but nobody here has heard about them.
I think I think they all want specifics now, and this is to all three of you. What they're really looking at is budgets and amounts. Can we put figures here? Like, what would be an ideal cap on an independent film that hopes to travel? So it's not like the other films that you've made it and you are, trying to hustle is the word they use, the local market. Here they are trying to apply, like, there's somebody who's just written that 3,000 euros is the application fee to a lab in Europe. 3,000 euros is a huge
No.
fee. I don't think that is correct. He's probably gotten that wrong. But
No,
having
he's right. That's the price for Torino. Torino is 2,000 to 3,000 euro. Torino, but it's only one lab. Yeah, this one, yeah.
But Torino is a big lab, and Indian, and somebody who's been at the bazaar, at the film bazaar, NFDC's film bazaar, would be looking at the Torino, has traditionally looked at Torino. So how does one kind of bring money figures into this? What is the kind of figures that we're looking at? How do I budget my film, and then what is my ask in a European market? I think that's what they're asking. So whosoever wants to start with this, how do you budget this
Yeah,
film?
can I, before I hand it over to the more educated people on this topic, uh, I just, I think we need to go back a bit, and everybody needs to first come to the first recommendation that we were all making, is that get a producer. Sitting and listening to a panel and getting a breakup of some budget is not going to help you. You're not going to be able to use it because every material has a different life cycle. You have to know what your film is about. You have to know what it's going to cost, which is the festival you want to go to. Do you want to go to a lab? There is no way that I mean, kudos, you've managed to put, like, I'm fascinated listening to Isabelle and Samir on everything that they're saying. And, maybe I'm going to hit them up to get some information on how to get into those festivals myself. But, the truth of the matter is that you have to understand that it is not, the first and foremost is not the amount, the first and foremost is the process. And every process is individual. And once you do that, there is no silver bullet that's going to come and solve your problems. You are going to struggle, whether it is with Shah Rukh Khan, or you're going to struggle whether it is with my son. It really is not going to get solved with some amount that, okay, if you manage to cobble together 15,000 euros, you'll be able to do this. It means nothing, where right now it seems like it means everything.
So this one, to give that person due credit, is coming from a co-production market. So I'm presuming there's a producer, independent or otherwise, attached to it. And now they're trying to figure out what is the best way to navigate. And one of the key questions is pricing. They cannot really price it at an amount that will seem not doable. So what is it that an international producer is looking at, or a fund is looking at? Are they looking at, is it okay for them to fund 80% of the budget, or would they want to give only 30%, or is it okay to have a very expensive film and then just have a small part of the money taken care? How do they figure out this, and how do they choose? How does this producer choose the pricing on a project? Yes, a project will have its own budget. So how do I choose as a producer the correctly budgeted, the correct cap that I can then ascertain from funds, etc., and then work it back to my film? How big should the film be?
I'll echo exactly what Srishti has been saying, is that I don't think cinema is first about the figures. And I'll give you a very simple example, which is an Indonesian film called Sipi, that traveled to Rotterdam, got awarded in Singapore, in Shanghai, in many festivals, went to Telluride. And that film was made for 10,000 euros, shot in 7 days. So it's not just about how much money can I get to make my film. And that's why you need a professional producer by your side that has an idea of the type of project that is on the table, the type of film that he will end up being. So the producer needs to have a vision himself as well of what is on the table and is being made. So what is the audience of the film? Is it a script that the European will be able to read, understand, and be interested to fund? The fund doesn't come from producers, it's come from government. They are commissions, they are enlightened partners in those commissions to decide, but they are government money. So, and they have hundreds of applicants every year, applicants from all over the world, and they don't have quota on how many films should come from India. So again, it's all about the projects. Then it is a journey that you do by applying, and then you're refused. And that's why we have financial plans, plan A, plan B. I tried the Dutch doesn't work, I try another one. It's not that you're gonna get the Dutch, the French, and the Germans, and the South Fund. It's very difficult to get all of that money unless you are from Afghanistan, from Myanmar, from a place where there's no industry. And if you're a good project, then they are so excited to finally have a project.
Have a voice from them.
Then they will be excited to help that director to make the film. Otherwise, India, you can be sure they receive every year many Indian projects. So why should it be this one that is selected? Because of the content of it. Then it's always, and that's the job of a producer, you try the funds, you don't get it, you have no choice, then you go back to your hard money and your investors if you want to make the film, or you don't make the film because you realize actually the market is not interested. And those funds is already the market, is already the audience that is saying we're not interested. So you never know for sure. You need to play and try out, and you have to, can we make it for cheaper? Because the less money you need, the more freedom you have. The more you need money, the less freedom you have.
Right.
Because things are asked from you. So if you want to be free, make something that is not too expensive. then actually you can do in a short time, where actually the content is the master. And it's not about having 20 elephants behind the leading actor. Because if you need those 20 elephants, then actually you might need a studio, you might need people with a lot of money, and they have requirements. So, and there's not one way to do it. Every project, as a producer, for me, every time is different. Of course, you might go to the same door, but the way they react, you say, okay, actually, I'm not that kind. I have to go to the other one. And for the Torino lab that was mentioned, it's very expensive, but you need to know where to invest your money. And I'm currently developing an Iranian second-time director, and I invested the 3,000 from my own money as the producer. I invested the 3,000 because I know if I want my director and my script to be strong enough to find the money that I need in Europe, I needed her to go. We went, we did Torino Lab, and we got a production fund of 50,000 euro. So I got my 3,000 back, and I have 47,000 more on top of her now knowing what she wants to do and having a stronger script. So it's also about where do you put your money? Not everybody should be putting the 3,000 euro, but if you're selected to Torino, my God, it's already an incredible stamp and support of the film. So that will help you get private money and public money. So it's well spent money. It's expensive, but it's really well spent.
Also, I think, this is a question that just came from what you said. So Torino also has the audience research lab.
Torino, they have a script lab where you go when you're developing the script, but you're not there yet. And you can have some awards at the end, which is a little of money. Then you have Torino Feature Lab. That's where I was. And at the end, there's 2 or 3 production awards that are given for international co-production or European productions. And then they also have a section which is just to help you for the distribution. What is the market of the film? What should be the poster? What are the key visuals? To help the filmmaker, the producer, and sometimes even the sales company, how can we reach out to the distributor? But they also do that for TV series now. So Torino is quite open and depends, there are different levels and you can submit at different times, but you have to submit at the right time within your frame of what you're doing. But they are really trying to put together, to strengthen the European projects, but also have international and Europe work together.
The next question is about, and I think we're almost running out of time. So I'm going to ask, and whoever picks this question up. So and I'm combining 2 questions. So there's co-production treaties that exist between a country and other countries. And there is something called soft funds. I'm guessing whether you're a first-time filmmaker or I'm sure the big Bollywood projects that happen, they all avail of these. So if starting from you, Srishti, how does this get navigated? The co-production treaty, does it really yield anything? What does it? And do you have to be Yash Raj in Switzerland and star-driven films, or does an independent filmmaker also stand a chance in availing of this? What does it really entail?
Isabelle, do you want to say something? I think those films need a lot of kind of work with the commission and stuff like that. Anybody who puts in the work can avail it. But there are certain criteria that you need to meet, at least on the bigger production side, in terms of the points and the employment. Because see, we have to remember one thing, that most of these are done for that country's benefit. They are not done for me as a producer. Is not why Birmingham is going to give me a grant. They are interested in the people in Birmingham getting work. That's why they're doing it, right? And so they'll give me an X amount of money back into the from the project once I've spent the money in their ecosystem. So that can be done. It's a lot of paperwork and a lot of understanding through the lawyers and all those kind of things, but it's not something that is budget dependent, because it's a percentage of your budget. It's not capped at anything, if I'm not mistaken.
So what you're saying is, for us, for something like a mainstream film which probably shoots songs, etc., in an international, I mean, in Malta or wherever, there would be a certain kind of money coming back. Will it be rebates, etc., that will happen? Because you're shooting there and you're working with their resources.
Yeah, I mean, typically that's the one that the big mainstream ones go for, where
Okay.
you get some, and you have like a single entry where you get simple permissions and everything done of the sort, because it's too hard to kind of put together. I would assume that if I was doing a film that is a more intimate project, I'm not sure I would want to suddenly have a technician who is not into the project, or from the top, to just come in for the schedule that I'm doing in Georgia. I'd rather keep it controlled because it's something that I've budgeted and scheduled, keeping in mind the resources that I have. Whereas when you go and you're doing a song, which is anyway a departure from the whole film, you can have a DOP who just comes in and does the song and goes away, because that's that kind of cinema. So I think, and I was really, really excited when Isabelle was saying there is no good or bad cinema, right? The cinema that you like and the cinema that somebody else likes. And I think keeping that in mind will eventually give a lot of young filmmakers comfort to go ahead and do what they want. Because, you don't have to seek the approval of a lab, and you don't have to seek the approval of, anybody except the people who you're talking to. And that also, it's an understanding, not an approval.
So Samir, to you, I want to ask this. A lot of independent filmmakers, actually a lot of independent films avail of these exemptions and treaties by having different crews. Sometimes like I remember Ship of Theseus did their post in Sweden or something. So how does that work? How does that help the film? Does it not escalate costs?
So I think when it comes to rebates, I think it's also there is minimum spends. So not always do independent films have that kind of a budget. It could be, you need to maybe spend 300,000 in that country before you start even touching those rebates. So I think that's a different question. But in terms of co-productions, I feel independent films should always be co-productions. I mean, I think because independent films in India are the global voice in a certain way, because Bollywood maybe is not completely the global voice. Independent films, whether or not they are, a big actor or a well-known actress is attached to it, I think a co-production always helps, because it also gives you the Western point of view of the product that you are creating, and how the audiences there might kind of receive it. So
Yeah.
I think having co-productions is never a minus. Of course, you have to have a good co-production partner, but
And it could be in any form. It could be soft. It could be studio partnerships, post
absolutely,
partnerships, whatever.
absolutely,
Which
absolutely.
actually brings us to what Isabelle started with when she said right in the beginning that eventually labs and everything, all these places of mentorship basically help you learn and understand how the other culture, how the other country looks at your work, your project. And it's really a cheaper bargain. I mean, starting off with this kind of mentorship, then getting stuck with a film you've made and it doesn't find.
And sometimes producers just get experience, and that
Exposure,
film,
network.
because absolutely a producer might just come with their experience and maybe not invest money, but yet guide the project in a way where you're doing the right things.
Yeah. So I just have 2 more minutes. Radha's giving me heads up every time now. So last one lines, everybody wants to know how do they get in touch with you? And it is not really about sharing your number or email ID. It is about really what do they need to do to catch your attention? Starting with you, Srishti, since you are the new producer on the block all over again.
I'm like, you tell me, guys, because I'm going to be clamoring for attention all over again from the other side. But I think it is pretty much what all three of us have been saying in different ways. Have a voice, have something to say. There is no story that hasn't been told. There's no emotion that hasn't been represented. It's your vision of it that kind of comes out and grabs the attention of the other person. And clarity. Clarity will help you get that vision. What is it that you want to say? What is your story about? It's And when you say, what is your story about? It's not about a man who lives in XYZ circumstance and does XYZ job. Your film, your content is about something. What is that? That's the clarity we need to find.
How does one connect with you, Isabelle, if they want to, if they have a film? Do they know how to reach a Chinese shadows?
Usually they know how to reach Maria. She's the one who's been traveling to India and traveling around, and they reach out to her. But us, it's also the fact that you selected in a project market or in a lab or having a film, even a short film awarded. That's why it shows that director comes out. But it's the work for us, for sure, it's the voice of the director. So it's the past shorts of the director plus a very strong idea of what he wants to make next.
So the qualifiers here would be the previous short or a diploma film or a thesis film.
Images is cinema, how much cinema there is, and do we connect to it? Because I might not be the right producer also. And your project might be beautiful, but I might not be the right person to be in the team of that film. So yeah, it's matchmaking. Yeah.
And Samir, you last words.
And true. I mean, true. If a project is at a lab or of course you give it attention. You are at a co-production market like NFDC. You will look at those 20 projects and see, yes, maybe this one is is the right one for me, and then you meet the. But otherwise, I think if you're coming from a completely a blank space, then I think like Srishti said, it's clarity and clarity in that one page. Maybe you don't have the time to talk to everyone, but if you send that one page and that one page really kind of intrigues you, then you look at the director's other work. Have they made a short film? Because it's not only about the idea and the script, it's also about how that's going to be executed in a certain way. Because so I think short films, I urge all the directors and producers, to really start with experimenting with the short film, because that also gives you a certain confidence on how you can make a format film.
And that would work for you also, Srishti, right? Like somebody's short film is.
I don't work for Netflix anymore.
No. What I mean is, as a producer, is it indicative? Like if I'm a first-time feature person, right?
Producers have, yes, and producers, like Samir was saying, need to jump in and enable that. Keep working, keep honing your craft in every way. These co-productions, doing some post-production in France, you get to see another culture, how they work, learn from them. Don't go to teach people. It's like when you go to see a movie, it's not, I would encourage people to go and learn from the movie and not go to critique the movie. It's not about proving anything aside from making the world buy into your vision. And for that, you just got to have your eyes open.
So yeah, I think take homes from today has pretty much been this. I mean, if you that you really need to get out there, do your thing, make your film, make short films, get a voice, figure out what your voice really is, minus the entrappings. Go to labs, apply for labs, markets, meet people, go there, study previous films that have made it within these funds or markets or labs or anything, and get an overview, study their budgets, get yourself a producer, and producer who can put these things together, not necessarily come out with cash like Samir did for Jonaki, but could also be what he did for Nasir. So yeah, I guess that's what it is. Thank you so much, Samir, Srishti, and Isabelle for doing this. I think it's been a very enlightening day. Thank you very much.
Thank you.